My name is Tony, and I'm a director of the Montana Bicycle Guild. We're a 501c3 nonprofit here in Helena. Our primary purpose is bike races, and to that end, we do races in Montana and in Idaho and Wyoming. But one of the true passions of everybody involved with the MBG is trails. So tonight, I'm going to talk about trails. Last summer, the MBG was approached by the city of Helena. We were asked if we would be interested in proposing mountain bike trails on the backside of Mount Ascension. These will be the first trails in the South Hills with downhill mountain bike travel as the primary intended use. Now, to say we were excited about this is an understatement. But to be clear, this was a bunch of excitement over the opportunity to write and submit a proposal, which we did, and as a part of the 2018 work plan, it was approved. And now there's even more excitement over the opportunity to spend our weekends and our evenings, all of our free time, organizing volunteers, getting tools together, and then generally going up on a hillside, toiling, moving dirt and rocks, which, saying it out loud, it doesn't make any sense. So to try and rationalize that excitement and explain why we are excited to basically get a bunch of blisters, it helps to ask a simple question. What are trails? And at first, it's a pretty simple answer. They're patches of bare earth and paths between 2 points. But let's dig a little deeper. What else are they? Well, trails go up and down mountains, they go across deserts, and they go through forests. And they're built with tools and with feet of humans and animals. And they've been around for about as long as anyone can tell. At a really high level, trails are and have been a fundamental part of life on this planet. Sidestepping animals and game trails, or even railroads and freeways, humanity has used trails for trade, for travel, for conquest, for recreation, and for adventure. And at some point in time, some of these trails have earned status and fame, a life of their own. The Camino de Santiago in Spain. Pilgrimages have happened on this trail for more than 1,000 years. To this day, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims and adventurers travel to northern Spain to complete all or a part of this roughly 500-mile path. There's the Great Ocean Walk in southern Australia. This trail finds the 12 apostles, some of the most beautiful and iconic sea stacks on the planet. This trail, too, is visited by hundreds of thousands of travelers every single year. And in this country, there's the John Muir Trail, crossing from the iconic Yosemite Valley to the highest point in the lower 48 states, the summit of Mount Whitney. There's the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast, and there's the Pacific Crest Trail on the West. And right here, in Helena's backyard, we've got the Continental Divide Trail, a trail commissioned by Congress in 1978. It spans almost 3,100 miles, crossing through 5 states, and it connects Canada to Mexico. And if you think about it, it's amazing, too, what else is driven by trails. Our National Forest Service, for example, has public employees paid with taxpayer dollars whose job it is to go and build and maintain trails, sometimes in incredibly remote places. There are private trail building companies that do the same thing. They employ people to go and build and maintain trails. And then there are guide companies that take people for adventures on these trails. There are untold numbers of guidebooks about trails and websites devoted to trails and printed maps of trails. I'd be willing to bet that just about everyone in this theater has seen the Prickly Pear Land Trust South Hills Trails map. And speaking of Prickly Pear Land Trust, even Helena's own PPLT has got Evan, a full-time employee dedicated to trails. And while Helena's South Hills trails are probably best known, there are many, many hundreds of miles of trails in the Elkhorns and in the Big Belts and spurring off of the Continental Divide Trail that have been used for a really long time. Anyone who's explored these trails knows of the mine shafts that dot the landscape. It's trails that connected those dots. And here in Helena, although primarily used for recreation now, we've got trails with names like Prospector Shafts in McKelvey and the Helena Ridge Trail that have been used on foot, on horseback, and on bicycle for work and for adventure for generations. So that's another thing that trails are. Trails are something that can connect people through time. Not only can you relate to somebody that you see on a trail today, but you can relate to somebody who's been on that trail in the past. It's a way to travel the earth and see things from the same patch of dirt, from the same perch of rock, and from the same twist and bend as someone who's been there before you. My grandfather went to school in Missoula in the early 1950s. And in his free time there, he would explore the trails in the Bitterroot and in the Rattlesnake. 60 years later, I was a student in Missoula, and I was exploring those same trails. My grandfather and I, we've sat down, we've shared our stories, and we've told our adventures to each other. Nowadays, my favorite way to travel is on a bicycle. And bicycles really are purpose-built devices for trails, paths, and routes. They're not going to be the best thing for going straight up or straight down a mountain. They aren't going to be able to cross deadfall, and they are definitely not the best thing to cross a vast swath of open land. But give them a trail, and they thrive. And here in Helena, I'm in good company. There are a lot of people that ride bikes here in Helena. And this is actually in line with the rest of the country. One interesting statistic to help frame this is that there are more people that ride bicycles for recreation in the United States than there are people who play golf, by nearly a 3-to-1 margin. And not only are there a lot of people here in Helena that love riding bikes, there is a very long-standing history of bicycles and adventures on bicycles right here in Helena. There's this image at the Montana Historical Society of a group of gentlemen in 1893, members of the Helena Bicycle Club, a club that exists to this day here in Helena. And they're preparing to ride their penny farthing bikes from Helena to the World's Fair in Chicago. This is 125 years ago. And to this day, this sense of adventures on bicycles still exists. People travel the world to ride their mountain bikes. They'll go to Utah to ride the whole enchilada, or they'll travel to Whistler in British Columbia to ride A-Line. And much like the Camino de Santiago, the whole enchilada and A-Line have earned a life of their own, status and fame throughout the world. Just speaking those names to a mountain biker will conjure up visions of incredible journeys, had or planned, no matter where they are. Anyone who's traveled those trails has this instant shared relationship with everyone else who will be on that trail, whether they've been there in the past or they'll be there in the future. Which brings me back to that excitement. We started the MBG in the winter of 2013. And after a lot of work and being stewards for our trails by picking up trash and pulling noxious weeds and volunteering for dig days, things changed. Our bona fides in place, the city asked us to propose those trails. And while I'm telling a story about those trails now, the stories will start in earnest once those trails are built and named. And while they'll likely never gain the status of the Camino de Santiago or A-Line, there will still be innumerable stories told about those trails. The first time riding a bike on the new trails. The time we saw a bear on the new trails. That time we ran into our friends unexpectedly on the new trails. And those stories will be shared with friends, with family, and with complete strangers over meals, over drinks, and at other trailheads everywhere. And that's why I'm talking about trails. Why we get so excited about trails. Why so many people dream of the magic tacky dirt in the springtime that Helena has. And why so many people travel from all over to come here and ride. We're the first place with trails that you can ride on. It's the first place with stories you can write. The joy of trails is partly that adventure on the patch of bare earth between 2 points. But more importantly, it's the intimate, personal, and totally relatable and shareable experience that you have with every other trail user, whether traveling by hoof, foot, or wheel, that makes them so special. So, in conclusion, the joy of trails is that trails do more than connect 2 points. Trails connect people. And that's why we are so excited to get those blisters. Thank you.